Thank you everyone for listening to the story on the channel Good Stories Audio. The Steward Demonic Emperor Chapter 1, The Nine Secrets. On the Tower of Tianmafeng, a man in a black robe is sitting in a breathless breath. In the sky of the clouds, the sun and the moon run side by side, and the warm sunshine and the cold moonlight sprinkle on the ground at the same time. The man took a deep breath, his hands flew to the sky, and the two rays of light gathered together at the same time, shot at him, and merged into his palms, and the whole sky suddenly dimmed. Suddenly, the wind blew, and a scream of horror sounded like howling thousands of evil spirits. The man's flowing hair flew up against the wind, revealing a strange face. As the two rays of light in the sky were drawn into the body, the radiance of the sun and moon gradually became darker and darker, but the man's momentum became stronger and stronger, and black gas began to radiate around the body. Feeling the biting cold wind across his cheeks, the thick black gas had enveloped him all in, and the man took a breath and showed a strange smile. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise rang out, and the four peaks around Tianmafeng suddenly exploded, and Tianmafeng was trembling non-stop. The man who was absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon suddenly opened his eyes and looked away. At this moment, the sound of breaking through the sky, 7 streamers immediately arrived, fell in front of him. When the light dissipated, 7 powerful figures were revealed. His brow flicked, and the man looked at the 7 people in front of him and said sullenly, "Don't the 7 of you always look down on our demon cultivators? What are you doing at the heavenly demon peak today?" "Ha, Demon Emperor Zhuo Yifan, don't you know the purpose of our coming here?" An old man with a white beard stroked his beard and looked at him sullenly. Unconsciously, Zhuo Yifan tentatively cried, "Old Sword Emperor, I don't understand what you mean." "Ha, you are less confused, and you will hand over the Nine Secret Records, if you are acquainted." A Dao stepped forward and shouted at the air. Hearing this, Zhuo Yifan couldn't help but panic. He found the legendary 9 Nether Devil Emperor's cave house only a month ago. After 9 deaths, he finally got the 9 Nether Secret Record that recorded his lifelong learning. How did these 7 people get this news in such a short time? Thinking of this, he seemed to suddenly think of something, and his face gradually darkened. "Zhao Cheng, you come out to me!" Zhuo Yifan shouted. The words fell, and light laughter suddenly sounded among the empty mountains and forests. Immediately afterward, a handsome young man dressed in white walked out from behind 7 people, looked at Zhuo Yifan with a slight salute, and said with a smile, "Haha, Master, are you looking for me?" Staring gloomily at this hypocritical face, Zhuo Yifan said lightly, "You gave me the secret record of the 9. Did you reveal it to them?" "Yes." Zhao Cheng nodded and smiled. "Then the mountain protection array I laid out was also unlocked by you?" "Yes." Zhao Cheng nodded again. "Why, Lao Tzu is not thin for you." Zhuo Yifan clenched his fists tightly, and the killing intent in his eyes became more and more powerful. Although he is a demon cultivator, he is usually not an indiscriminate killer, but just a rash act. Otherwise, they would have been eliminated by those defenders soon. Especially for this Zhao Cheng, he was an orphan. Zhuo Yifan saw him with good qualifications before accepting him as an apprentice. Unexpectedly, today he was betrayed. Feeling more and more intense on Zhuo Yifan's body, although Zhao Cheng's face was still calm, he unconsciously moved back 2 steps and came to the side of the 7. "Master, you treat me with great gratitude, Zhao Cheng naturally understands. But you shouldn't dominate the seat of the 8 emperors, let me live under your shadow forever, and you shouldn't practice alone after you get the 9 secrets, prevent me like a thief, and don't even show me a glance." Hearing this, Zhuo Yifan couldn't help but feel pain in his heart. Where did Zhao Cheng know that Zhuo Yifan did this? Because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to cultivate enough, and he would rashly learn that the nine secrets would get into trouble, so he had to learn it before teaching it to him. Unexpectedly, in just 1 month, it revealed his wolf ambition. Ha ha ha, okay, well said. Zhao Cheng, you are really a good apprentice. Zhuo Yifan laughed in the sky, and the anger in his heart had reached the extreme point. Since this is the case, let me try the taste of the nine secret records as a teacher. Zhuo Yifan, there are 7 of us here, and it is not your turn to be so arrogant. The old man with a white beard stepped in front of Zhao Cheng and shouted. Ha, Lao Tzu is recognized as the head of the 8 emperors in the Holy Land. Even if your 7 emperors go together, Lao Tzu is not in the eyes. As soon as the words fell, Zhuo Yifan slapped Zhao Cheng. Suddenly, a black claw appeared in the sky, and one claw grabbed it. His eyes shrank slightly, and Zhao Cheng was terrified and faltered. The old man with white beard slammed his black claws with a mighty pressure and suddenly made a sword. Suddenly, a white sword light rushed to the sky and instantly cut the black claw into nothingness. Ha, the nine secret records, but that's it. The old man with a white beard stood against the sword, with disdain in his eyes. Seeing this scene, Zhuo Yifan smiled strangely, palms out together. Old Sword Emperor, don't be too arrogant. Boom! After a loud noise, thousands of black palm prints appeared in the sky like thousands of hunters, and they all pressed against 7 people. Each palm print is more than twice the size of the previous black claw, and its power has made everyone's eyes show horror. How is it possible? Has he broken through to the Holy Order? Sword Emperor saw that the whole sky was covered by the black seal, and couldn't help but take a breath. When the rest of the people saw it, they were all trembling. Saint rank masters are simply not the existence that they can deal with the 7 emperors. Zhao Cheng was even more ashamed, and he already regretted his death. Who would have thought that Zhuo Yifan, who has just practiced the 9 secrets for more than a month, has already become so strong? Ha, traitor, this is your end. Zhuo Yifan looked at the panicked Zhao Cheng and sneered again and again. Ah! Suddenly, white light fell from above the clouds and passed through the layers of black marks and instantly came to Zhuo Yifan. He hadn't responded to what happened yet, but this light penetrated his body. Puff! A mouthful of scarlet blood spewed out, and thousands of black seals in the sky suddenly disappeared as the gurgling black gas disappeared. Zhuo Yifan lifted his pale cheeks and looked up, and saw a middle-aged man standing there, with a holy glow shining behind him. Saint! Zhuo Yifan gritted his teeth reluctantly, murmured, already guessing the intention of the coming person. The demon emperor Zhuo Yifan, the saint on behalf of the sanctuary, takes back the relics of the demon emperor. As long as you hand it over, the saint saves you from death. Looking down at everyone below, the middle-aged man's eyes seem to be empty. If it is not Zhuo Yifan who has the secret record of the 9 serenities, he may be too lazy to even look at him. This is the strongest saint in the sanctuary, and even a strong man such as an imperial master is like ants in their eyes. With a miserable smile, Zhuo Yifan took out a jade with the glowing glow from his arms. And upon seeing this jade, everyone's eyes radiated a strange luster, even the saint was no exception. Disdainfully swept to everyone present, Zhuo Yifan sneered, "What kind of guardian, what kind of saint, isn't a wicked villain who wants to make a fortune?" Today, even if Lao Tzu ruined the 9 secrets, he wouldn't let anyone can get it. As soon as the words fell, Zhuo Yifan suddenly raised a terrible breath. Oh, he's going to explode. Jian Yuang's eyes shrank and flew out hurriedly, and the rest hurried to keep up. Only the holy man, with horror and anger in his eyes, rushed in the direction of Zhuo Yifan. "Stop!" A proud smile appeared on his face, and Zhuo Yifan slammed the jade into a crush when the saint came to him. Looking at how the saint gritted his teeth, Zhuo Yifan gave a hearty laugh. Boom! With a big laugh, Zhuo Yifan exploded. The strong impact raised the entire Tianmo peak to the ground. When the smoke cleared, only the saint came out of the dust with a furious look, and his clothes were only cracked. The saint is the saint. In such a strong self-exploitation, he can still be safe. The Sword Emperor came to the saint and praised deeply. With a cold snort, the saint ignored him and turned to leave. At this moment, Zhao Cheng hurried forward to stop and said, "The saint stays on foot, and the demon emperor Zhuo has all kinds of tricks. If he seizes others, only he knows the content of the nine secret records in the world. Revenge. Ha, he exploded with his soul, so what did he take away?" Flicking his sleeves, the saint disappeared instantly in front of everyone. Hearing his words, the crowd finally let go of their hearts. With the presence of the saint, the emperor-level master wanted to let the soul escape by self-detonation, but it could not be done. But it was a pity that the 9 secrets passed down by the ancient Devil Emperor. Looking back at the ruins of Heavenly Demon Peak, everyone has mixed tastes in their hearts, fortunate and regretful, but more regrettable. Chapter 2, Rebirth of the Demon Emperor. The night was as dark as ink, and the bright moon was covered by gloomy dark clouds, showing no slight brilliance. The silent forest was full of corpses, a terrible post-war situation. The air was full of smelly blood, which attracted the beasts around to eat in groups. Suddenly, with the chewing sound of the herd, there was a young man among the corpses on the floor. Can't help moving his sensitive ears, the herd looked at the source of the sound and gradually approached. Boom! There was a loud noise, the two bodies were pushed to the sides, and a figure sat up from the corpse, covered with blood. The herd couldn't help but be surprised and hurried back 2 steps. When he saw that the man was a living creature, he showed bloodthirsty eyes again and slowly approached. However, the teenager seemed to be completely unaware of the danger around him and just sat there blankly. "This is me now?" The teenager raised his hands and looked, his eyes seemed to be covered with a hazy color. Roar! Suddenly, a loud roar sounded, and a wild wolf rushed at the teenager. Hearing the movement in his ears, the teenager suddenly turned his head, revealing a face with blood on his face, especially the murderous intention in his eyes, which was like 2 swords shooting straight at the wolf's eyes. Ah! The wolf that was rushing forward stopped suddenly, shivering unconsciously, and shrank back. The rest of the beasts were also slightly startled, staring at the demon-like eyes, and retreated from their interest. Although the young man was very weak, the instincts of the beast told them that this person was quite dangerous. The ear calmed down again, and the teenager took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. The boy named Zhuo Fan, 15 years old, is a domestic servant of the Luo family of Yunshanzuang. Originally living a carefree life, but a group of thieves in Heifeng Mountain 3 days ago was a bloodbath. He and the guards escorted Miss Young Master all the way to escape, and eventually, he was also killed in this forest. However, before he died, he carried an obsession. It is this obsession, combined with the resentment of the Demon Emperor Zhuo Yifan floating in the world, that made the Demon Emperor win the battle. Having figured this out, Zhuo Fan opened his eyes and showed a strange smile. Haha, Sword Emperor, Zhao Cheng, you never think that the secret records of the 9 nethers actually record the method that you can take away the soul without a soul. You wait for me, and wait for the Lao Tzu to return to the Holy Land. When you are in a different place. In the gloomy forest, Zhuo Fan laughed terribly. Hearing the beast eating the corpse, he couldn't feel it and left in a hurry. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, a slight cough sounded. Zhuo Fan's laughter stopped abruptly, and his eyes looked like the falcon to the source of the sound. Save, help. There was a faint cry for help. Zhuo Fan hurried over and saw a Luo family guard lying on the bottom of the corpse, with a large swath of red between his mouth. Ha, what happened to the secular family has nothing to do with me. Squinting slightly, Zhuo Fan shook his head and turned away. If it was Zhuo Fan, he must save Luo's family. But now he is Devil Emperor Zhuo Yifan. Luo family is nothing but ants in his eyes. Who will be fine to save the lives of ants? However, he had not taken 2 steps, but he stopped suddenly. As if I thought of something, I immediately sat down cross-legged and checked the body now. After a while, Zhuo Fan opened his eyes violently, his eyes full of surprise. This kid is already 15 years old. He has never practiced yet and still maintains a pure body. On this Emperor Martial continent, most people have to practice. Even farmers who cultivate land will have 1 or 2 layers of foundation cultivation. So it's very rare for a 15-year-old who hasn't practiced at all. The highest practice recorded in the Nine Secrets, the heavenly demon Dahua recipe, can be used by others to cultivate for their own use, and finally, devour the heavens and devour the earth to reach the supreme state of heaven and earth in their hearts. It requires a pure body to practice. Moreover, this exercise was realized only after the 9 Nether Devil Emperor became Emperor Realm. While hesitating whether to abandon cultivation for recultivation, he was strangled by other Emperor Realm Masters. At that time, 9 Demon Emperor was one of the strongest 3 emperors in the ancient 10 emperors. He could make him think about the practice of giving up the emperor's realm and recultivating. I really don't know how strong it is, maybe it is more than the Tianji practice. Stronger. Therefore, Zhuo Yifan also thought of self-abolition after his practice. But before waiting for him to do so, the 7 emperors and Zhao Cheng had already come to the door. Now, with this pure body that has never been cultivated, the cultivation effect must be more powerful. Thinking of this, Zhuo Fan hurried to the guard, pushed away all the bodies beside him, and rescued him from under the heap. Squinting at the man who pulled him back from the edge of death, the guard showed a grateful smile. Zhuo Fan, it turned out to be you, thank you, I will definitely repay you when I return. Hey, why wait back, now you can repay me. The corner of the mouth slightly tilted, and Zhuo Fan showed a strange smile. Seeing this smile, the guard couldn't help but stunned, and there was a trace of coolness in his heart for no reason. The Luo family is also not the first time to meet Zhuo Fan, but he has never seen Zhuo Fan show such a sinister expression. It was like a wolf looking at a rabbit. Zhuo Fan, what are you doing? The guard looked at him cautiously. Without answering his words, Zhuo Fan only looked at his body with a smile on his face, and muttered in his mouth, yes, the dual strength of Kiki realm is a good material for foundation. The magic of heavenly demon is different from other exercises. The foundation of other exercises is to absorb the spirit of heaven and earth, and gradually refine your body. But the magic of heavenly demon Dahua is to seize the cultivation of others, to serve as the foundation for his future cultivation. However, how can an ordinary person seize the cultivation behavior from a cultivator? That naturally required him to be seriously injured and unable to move. At the time, Zhuo Yifan hesitated whether to abandon the practice of this set of exercises, but he was actually worried about whether he would encounter such an opportunity. If he did not, he would be an ordinary person in his life. That was not worth the loss, and the wife and the soldiers were defeated. I believe that the 9 Devil Emperor had the same consideration. But what he didn't expect was that he had just won the championship, and God gave him this good opportunity to practice. That was really a rare encounter. Watching Zhuo Fan look at his own eyes like a rogue and seeing a beautiful woman, the guard guarded his heart, gritted his teeth, and shouted, You are not Zhuo Fan. Hey, that's right. With a cold smile, Zhuo Fan's face showed a fierce color. Laozi is the head of the 8 emperors of the Holy Land, and the demon emperor Zhuo Yifan. Chapter 3, Tianmo Dahua Puff. Zhuo Fan slapped his celestial cover with a palm in the frightened eyes of the guard, and began to practice the exercises. Suddenly, a black airflow emerged from his hands, burrowing into the body of the guard like a twisted bug. As soon as this black spirit entered the body, the guard's complexion changed immediately. The horrified look was stained with a painful twist, and the pale face due to excessive blood loss gradually turned black. It didn't take a while for the guards to turn the whole body into black charcoal. In the dark night, he could not clearly see his figure without looking carefully. Seeing this scene, Zhuo Fan's mouth twitched slightly, releasing a rare color of excitement in his eyes. Although the Devil's Dahua tactic is to transform others' cultivation into their own skills, how can the strength of others' hard cultivation be so easily captured? Even if inhaled into the body, I am afraid that they will repel themselves. In particular, the foundation that will serve as the foundation for future practice should be treated with caution. Therefore, Zhuo Fan must first demonize his elemental power before it can be completely absorbed. Taking a deep breath, Zhuo Fan calmed down with excitement, his hands tightened, and those black airflows began to flow back from the guard to his body, and the guard's black body began to dry out quickly. After half an hour, Zhuo Fan withdrew his palms, crossed his knees on the ground, and exercised the new strength of the body. The body of the guard fell to the ground and fell into the powder with a touch. Like a corpse that has been dead for thousands of years, suddenly it was dug out from the underground kilometer and encountered the weathering of the air. It completely turned into a pile of sand and drifted in the air. The heavenly demon Dahua recipe created by the 9 spectral demon emperor can not only take its power to me, but also consume the essence of others' life. The strong black air flowed through the body like a flood, Zhuo Fan quickly sinking his mind, running the exercises, guiding this force to his major veins, constantly washing the barriers of the veins, and gradually widening the veins. The full power of the Jukajing master was injected into his body that had never been practiced at once. The kind of pain that was about to tear the veins of his muscles made a thick sweat bead from his forehead. But he still bears it, because he knows that such a powerful empowerment will lay a solid foundation that no one can match. With such a foundation as a guarantee, he can do more with less in the future. In the past 1 minute and 1 second, 1 hour and 2 hours, Zhuo Fan has been gnashing his teeth, and the sweat on his head flows like a waterfall. After another 3 hours, Zhuo Fan's teeth, which he had been clenching, began to loosen. The black airflow circulated hundreds of times in his body and returned to his danshan, which turned into a black lake quietly. Staying there is no previous rage. Slowly opened his eyes, Zhuo Fan exhaled a long breath. The clouds at the edge of the sky had already given off a slight white light, and those beasts who had been fed all night began to walk deep into the forest. Is it dawning? Ha, I can't think of the skill of refining a kai-gathering double cultivator, it would take a night. Zhuo Fan laughed, shook his head, and began to check his body at this time. Bump! With a loud noise, a huge stone suddenly fell into a crush under Zhuo Fan's thin fist. Zhuo Fan nodded with satisfaction, His body was tempered by the master force of Kai realm and was greatly improved. As far as physical strength is concerned, it is no longer under the master of gathering energy. Then he looked at his cultivation behavior again. But I don't see it. Upon inspection, even he himself couldn't help but startle. His cultivation practice actually reached the 5th floor of the foundation directly from nothing, and what was stored in the body was not the vitality of the foundation, but directly the strength of the Kai gathering environment. Good guy, the magic trick of this day is really wonderful. Zhuo Fan couldn't help but secretly slurp in his heart. Generally speaking, it takes 5.5 years to cultivate to the 5th floor of the foundation, even those talented geniuses in the Holy Land. But after only one night, he has already achieved what others can only achieve in 2 or 3 years. It seems that it won't take long for me to return to the sanctuary, Zhuo Fan yelled. However, just as he fantasized about returning to the old scenery, the shouts of murder suddenly came into his ears. Brow furrowed, Zhuo Fan looked in the direction of the sound and walked towards it carefully. He knew in his heart that although he now has the skills to build the 5 layers of foundation, his micro-deeds are not enough to use some of the simplest martial arts, and the master has no power to fight back. So everything is better to be cautious. After all, he is no longer the wicked demon emperor. Like a wild cat, he moved slowly to the edge of the grass. Zhuo Fan slowly turned away the weeds and looked out. There, 2 groups of people are facing each other. A group of more than a dozen people, dressed as Luo's guards, surrounded them with a 17 to 18-year-old girl and a 5 or 6-year-old boy. The other gangs are all dressed in black, led by an old man, probably more than 20. And that old man, Zhuo Fan, looked very familiar. After thinking it over carefully, he remembered that the old man was Luo's housekeeper, son's housekeeper. The men and women surrounded by the guards were Luo Yunhai, the young master of the Luo family, and Miss Luo Yunsheng. Well, it's no wonder that the Luo family's strict guarding will also be broken by the thief of the Black Wind Mountain. It turned out to be a thief. Zhuo Fan sneered in his heart, remembering his apprentice Zhao Cheng again, his fists clenched tightly. In the previous life, he was betrayed by the closest disciple, and the person he took away in this life also died because of it, which made him feel a sense of sympathy. But soon, he shook his head, sighed, and turned to leave. With his current strength, he can't help anyone at all. Moreover, he has nothing to do with the Luo family, cannot commit to selling their lives for them. However, he had just taken 2 steps back in his footsteps, but his heart was suddenly painful, making it difficult for him to take the 3rd step. Chapter 4, Flayer. Suddenly horrified, Zhuo Fan clutched his chest tightly and fell to the ground with pain, murmured, "What's the matter? Do I practice hard and fall into a devil?" Thinking of this, Zhuo Fan began to panic. If the devil's tactics go out of the way from the beginning, and the foundation is not stable, it's not just a matter of giving up. I am afraid that I can no longer practice in this life, and I will completely become a waste person. However, the heartache seemed to be fleeting and disappeared immediately. Zhuo Fan stood up, took a breath, frowned deeply, and touched his chest, puzzled. However, when he took another step, his heart burst out again. No, it's not about getting into trouble, it's demon. This time, Zhuo Fan thought of the reason, so he immediately sank his mind and looked at the source of the demon. For cultivators, if you let the mind and the devil leave you alone, it will not be far from getting out of the way. It's just that in a few moments, Zhuo Fan has found the reason, but this reason makes him feel a little awkward. It turned out that before being defeated by the demon emperor, this Zhuo Fan was a loyal servant, and the lady of the house owner was very good to him, so he swore to loyal to the Luo family all his life. Before he died, the obsession in his heart was the regret of not being able to protect the Luo family. At this moment, the demon emperor's resentment was united with his obsession, and the demon emperor captured his soul and body to be reborn again, and his obsession was equivalent to the contract with the demon emperor, becoming the demon emperor bondage. That is to say, the devil emperor was born because of him, and he had to replace him to protect Luo family. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. Damn, what's so bad about this kid's obsession, but he wants to be a slave to others. Zhuo Fan wanted to cry without tears, and his mouth was bitter. How can he be dragged down by a small family when he thinks that his magnificent Emperor Zhuo Yifan, the head of the 8 emperors in the Holy Land? However, this demon cannot let go. When thinking of this, Zhuo Fan had no choice but to touch his forehead. Your kid's last wish is to find someone to avenge Shu Heng, but it's a big deal to help you kill someone in a few years, but it's just, alas, Lao Tzu has been your life ruined. Someone, come out. Suddenly, an old loud drink sounded, and Zhuo Fan suddenly felt a strong murderous intention shoot at him. Shaking his head helplessly, Zhuo Fan sighed and headed out. Now that it has been found, it is only possible to meet the traitor Sun Butler. Zhuo Fan strode forward in front of everyone with a glance at the grass. When Sun Butler saw him, he could not help laughing, and his eyes showed contempt. Well, who should I be? It turned out to be your little rabbit. After he finished talking, Sun Guangjia looked at Luo Yunsheng again, but he didn't even take him seriously. Miss, the old slave advises you to hand over the practice of Yulongzang as soon as possible, so that no one will be killed or injured for you. I think such a scenario, you don't want to see it. Fart, old man's son, you traitor of the mountain village. As long as we are here, you will not want to hurt the young lady and the young master. The guards of the Luo family stepped forward and shouted. Luo Yunsheng also stared at him with a frown, and the pretty face was full of unyielding colors. Sun Guangjia, Yulongzang is a spirit-level martial art passed down from generation to generation of our Luo family. We will not give it to you, even if we die. After listening to their words, Zhuo Fan groaned contemptuously. Why did he attack the Luo family when these thieves attacked? It turned out to be just a spirit-level martial art. On the Emperor Wu continent, all exercises and martial art skills are divided into 5 levels of heaven, earth, shu and ling, and each level is divided into elementary, intermediate, and advanced. In the sanctuary, there are many martial arts on the street, and in the eyes of his demon emperor, there is even rubbish. He has thousands of pieces in his hand. It is really not worth it to lose your life for this kind of thing. Zhuo Fan sighed helplessly and shouted lazily, Miss, this is a spirit-level martial art. What's the big deal? Give them, I'll pay you another one later. As soon as this remark came out, everyone was shocked, and then all looked at him with a look like a lunatic. Zhuo Fan, you guys have such a big tone. You just have to pay for a spirit-level martial art at any time? Why, just because you have been a slave for 15 years at the Luo family? Sun Guangjia laughed in the sky, his eyes full of ridicule. The rest of the thieves also laughed, and the ridicule in their eyes was unabashed. The guards looked at Zhuo Fan, but they looked puzzled. Especially those friends who are familiar with Zhuo Fan on weekdays are even more strange. This kid is quite honest. How come he is talking nonsense at this moment? Is he scared by these bandits? Well, it must be. So, all the guards looked at him with sympathy. Fully understand what they were thinking, Zhuo Fan shrugged indifferently. At this moment, I am afraid that he said that he not only had the spirit-level martial arts, but also the lifetime learning of the ancient devil emperor, the 9 secrets. They would not believe it. Zhuo Fan, stop talking nonsense, and don't hurry to come and look after the young master. Suddenly, a whisper sounded. Zhuo Fan turned his head and saw Luo Yunsheng looked at himself with a furious face. However, in the depths of her eyes, Zhuo Fan could see a trace of pity. Chapter 5, Fierce Domestic Slave.
The corner of his mouth slightly tilted, and Zhuo Fan already understood what she meant. Probably the eldest lady thought he was crazy, but couldn't bear him being accidentally killed in the fight between the two sides, so he only found a chance to hide in the protection of the guards. You are still stunned, don't hurry to pull him over, don't let him be humiliating there. Luo Yunsheng shouted to the guard again. However, the guard did not move yet, and a silver knife was already placed on Zhuo Fan's neck. Slow down. Sun Butler smiled coldly and looked straight into Luo Yunsheng's eyes, as if seeing through all her thoughts. Hey, Missy is still as good as ever, even a mad slave. Want to save? With a frown, Luo Yunsheng yelled angrily. Grandmaster's son, don't you even let the madman go? Still, if you don't want any innocent people to be implicated, you should hand over Weilong Palm quickly. Otherwise, we people don't mind the blood on the knife. As soon as the words fell, the thief who held Zhuo Fan with his knife scratched Daomen's face on Zhuo Fan's face and also made a bloodthirsty smirk. Luo Yunsheng pursed her lips, and there was a trace of hesitation in her eyes, but she quickly closed her eyes in pain. Seeing this scene, Zhuo Fan has fully understood her decision. Although the young lady did not intend to use martial arts for his life as a master, he was able to take a moment of hesitation for a domestic slave, which has already made him quite gratified. However, next, he wanted to survive, he had to solve it himself. Looking back at the thief with a knife, he was fat, and he was about the same size as him. His strength was about 7 floors. It should be solved. Zhuo Fan's fists clenched tightly, and the inner force of his body secretly converged towards his left arm, a fierce flash in his eyes. Miss, since you are so stubborn. Then this Zhuo Fan will be the first person to die because of you. Sun Guanjia waved his hand, staring at Luo Yunsheng's painful eyes, and said, Fat, hands on. Hearing the command, the fat man laughed evilly, and his silver knife raised high. However, at this moment, after a loud bang, people heard the sound of car with broken bones in their ears, followed by the fat wail of the fat man. The knife in his hand also fell. Zhuo Fan stretched out his hand, grabbed the falling knife, and turned back. Suddenly, blood drifted away, and a fat head flew into the air. Although Zhuo Fan only has the strength of the 5th floor of the foundation, his physical strength and the internal force stored in the body are only possessed by the master of Kiki. At that time, while the fat man was not paying attention, the elbow of his left hand slammed into his chest, breaking the bones of his front chest and back.
Then he started again, and everything fell into one piece like a cloud. Everyone didn't respond to what happened. The fat man was already in a strange place, and he uttered his life. Thump! The blood-filled head fell to the ground, and the bones rolled to the front of Sun Guanjia. Sun Butler looked at the familiar face in front of him innocently, couldn't believe it was true. He has been watching Zhuo Fan growing up in a Luo family for so many years. What kind of person can his grandson's housekeeper know? That is a loyal and honest bully. But who would have thought that such a sheep-like person would one day show the teeth of a tiger and wolf, and solve it with a master who built a 7-story foundation? The killing was fierce, and even these thieves did not feel cold in their hearts. Those Luojia guards were even more shocked. Is this the same kind and loyal Zhuo Fan who was talking and laughing with them? Except for Xu Wei, the agility and fierceness of this skill, even their guardian commander, would be out of reach. Everyone was shocked on the spot by this sudden scene, and the time seemed to be still. Everyone stared at Zhuo Fan, who was holding the bloody knife in his eyes, motionless, and seemed to forget his breath. Do not leave at this time, when should I wait? Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes, and made a decisive decision. While everyone was still in a daze, he slammed the blood knife towards Sun Guanjia and rushed towards Miss Luo. After Sun's housekeeper reacted and blocked the blood knife, Zhuo Fan had already come to Luo Yunsheng. holding Luo Yunhai in one hand, grabbed Luo Yunsheng in one hand, and ran deep into the woods. Go! Luo Yunsheng was a little stunned, and at a loss, he could only let him run. Sun Butler saw the surrounded fat sheep slipping away again, and couldn't help but anxiously shouted, "Catch me!" However, when they had just moved, the guard commander and the guards had stopped in front of them. "Ha, do you think you can stop us?" Sun Butler looked at the guard commander and said fiercely. The guard commander smiled and shook his head, "Unstoppable, but you can delay the time and let the young master and the young lady get away." Hey, you are dead, can the two of them run away?" Sun Guanjia yelled. Turning around and glancing at Zhuo Fan's direction of their disappearance, the guard commander nodded confidently. "It may not be able to run away before, but now that child is protecting them." The rest of the guards listened and nodded together, inexplicably trusting Zhuo Fan in his heart. Although they did not understand why Zhuo Fan was so brave suddenly, having such a warrior beside Miss Young Master would also give them one more chance of survival. He gritted his teeth fiercely, and Sun Guanjia looked remorsefully into the distance, with a snake-like poisonous man's eye in his eyes. "That stinky boy dares to spoil my big things. When the old man catches him, he must peel his bones and let him go. No dead body."